Pam Killeen is an author and health and wellness coach with a focus on educating people about improving their sleep quality. Pam, welcome to the Richard Syrett Show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me here.
Why do you think, first of all, do you think the healthcare system perpetuates a culture of burnout? And then if so, why? And what needs to change, maybe at an organizational level to address it?
Right. It's an epidemic within the healthcare system. It's not just doctors and nurses, but of course within the population of patients. I think it's over half of us are going to doctors to seek treatment for something in the area of burnout, whether it's depression, fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, the list goes on and on. And so it's an epidemic within the entire culture. And unfortunately, the eye is off the target. People are really not looking at what they should be looking at in order to solve this crisis. Some people are looking for answers in behavior modification, or some people are looking for answers with medication. And I don't think we would be having this conversation, Richard, if these things were working. So we have to look a little deeper. We have to look under many, many rocks to solve this crisis, because fundamentally the system is crashing because we're not finding solutions for people who have these chronic health problems, including the doctors and nurses themselves.
Well, I'm told sometimes doctors make the worst patients, and we're familiar with that. That phrase, "physician heal thyself." But so, are we also talking here about mental health and maybe the stigma around mental health in medicine, which is preventing doctors, nurses from seeking the help they need?
There is still a stigma there. There's no question about it. Unfortunately, because the solutions are not what they should be, people are basically spinning their wheels, struggling with these kinds of symptoms, whether it's depression, anxiety, insomnia, attention deficit disorder, the list goes on and on. So a lot of people are suffering in silence because of that. And so I think what we have to do is understand that the natural health world does have a lot of the answers. Unfortunately, there are just too many solutions out there, and it's hard to hone in on what might work and what won't work. So that causes even more spinning of the wheels, if you will. And so I think you and I, we talked recently about, in another show, about the importance of regulating your circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. And when I say the word circadian, a lot of people are going to go, what the heck is she talking about? Right. It's a new word for a lot of people. They may just think about it in the area of, say, jet lag. And I think if everybody has ever flown across the country to Vancouver, they might know what it feels like to have jet lag. And guess what? Those symptoms are not dissimilar. In other words, they're very similar to experiencing the feelings of burnout. And you might, from a long trip to Vancouver, you might recover if you have a really good night's sleep shortly thereafter. And so you may not notice the feelings of jet lag lingering. But what you and I are talking about here, Richard, is the lingering effect of jet lag. Basically, that people are throwing off their circadian rhythm every single day, that they're not going to bed at regular times. They're not eating meals at regular times. And on top of that, they're being bombarded with all of this very toxic artificial lighting that is throwing off their hormones and neurotransmitters. And so you really can't out-supplement that. You can't out-medicate that. And it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of education. It takes a lot of desire to try to break the cycle of being in a state of burnout. And it's going to take a concerted effort from everybody in this province to try and undo the damage that we've done to our circadian rhythm, and therefore improve our sleep quality. Because everybody knows when you have a good night's sleep, man, you feel like you can take on the world the next day, right? And that's just not how people are feeling today. This sleep epidemic we have right now is just debilitating society. It's costing us, I'm sure, into the billions of dollars because of lowered productivity and other such items. So we have to do a lot about this, and it's going to take a concerted effort.
Well, it's exacerbated in not only the healthcare profession, but any, first responders, shift work, or even factories. Shift work is a killer. I had two sisters that nurse. They're both, that were in nursing. They both retired, but one, she just couldn't do the shift work anymore. It was just having a deleterious effect on her health. How do you change that?
Well, the World Health Organization calls shift work carcinogen. It causes, you're increasing your chances of developing cancer if you're working shift work. So it does take a lot of education to work with people who are on dysregulated shifts. You can overcome the effects of being in that kind of dysregulated sleep pattern. But again, I can't cover all of that in a short segment. But the good news is if you do follow what Mother Nature gave us from the get-go, if you do follow her rules, you can overcome a lot of this sleep dysregulation and burnout problem that we're seeing today. So some simple things people can do is basically go to bed at the same time every single night. Hopefully it's an early hour, and then say 10 o'clock, and you get up at 6 o'clock the next morning, and you try and stick to a very, very strict regimen. And then on top of that, you watch the sunrise in the morning, because the sunrise actually fuels the eyes. It's like the conductor to a symphony. Your eyes actually are a circadian messaging system to the rest of your body. And so if you're watching the sunrise in the morning, it will actually start doing things like produce your melatonin. And we're led to believe wrongly that we produce the melatonin at night. We don't. We produce the melatonin in the morning when we're exposed to that beautiful morning sun. When we produce the melatonin at night, it's in response to darkness. So we need a pitch black room to sleep in if we're going to expect to have a really high quality sleep at night. But to contrast that, in the morning, we need that bright light from that beautiful morning sun as well, basically to set the messaging up for all of our hormones and neurotransmitters. And
Right.
so all of this kind of education is critical as we move from a centralized healthcare system, which is failing us, to a decentralized healthcare system, which is going to save us, basically. And so the decentralized system is what is being organized right now, I think, by the powers that be, because they know that the centralized healthcare system is a failure, that they can't deal with 80% chronic illness rates, that people are suffering in droves. And the answer does lie with Mother Nature, but it's going to require a tremendous amount of education to get us to the point where we can reduce this level of suffering.
Right. And if the physicians and nurses are burnt out, obviously those are huge warning signs for patients. Patients are going to suffer as a result. If their healthcare providers are not on their game, then patients are going to suffer as well. Pam, we're going to have you back next week, and maybe we'll talk some more about what you call circadian hygiene, and how, because it's not just healthcare workers. It's just a symptom of modern society, bad sleep, and without restful, restorative sleep, we die. It's that simple. Pam, how can we find out more about you and what you do?
You can visit my website, which is www.pamkilleen.com. And I'm also starting a private Facebook community called the Sleep Better Forum as well. And you can find out more about that on my website, which again is pamkilleen.com.
Pam Killeen, KILLEEN.com, pamkilleen.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes when we publish the podcast later tonight. Pam, thank you. We'll talk again next week.
Thank you.